Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
Welcome to episode 85 of the Politics for Patriots podcast. I'm really excited about today's episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. Lots of interesting things in my purview today. If you haven't yet, please subscribe on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, every time you subscribe to a conservative podcast, a liberal somewhere sheds a tear.
Please don't be mean to me!
Okay, here we go. Imagine for a moment that you are 9 years old, and there's a giant box wrapped up under the Christmas tree with your name on it. And it's giant. This box is taller than you. And it's not one that Santa brings, so you never see it until Christmas morning. No. This one has been there since, like, the day after Thanksgiving. You have dreams about it every night. Every day, you dramatically reveal your new theory about what's in the box to your siblings, like it's the last scene of an episode of Murder, She Wrote. The night of Christmas Eve. You just lay there in bed for hours and hours, completely awake. Finally, Christmas Day comes. You run straight out to that giant box. You tear off the wrapping paper. You climb a stepladder. You open the box, and what's in there? A 3-pack of underwear.
No, wait, let me say something. Let me say something.
Totally devastating. And if you are a Democrat, that's what the Mueller hearings were like for you.
No, wait, let me say something. Let me say something.
Pundits on both sides noticed something weird, which is that Mueller doesn't seem to know very much about the Mueller investigation or the contents of the Mueller report. Here's a little clip to give you an idea.
When you talk about the firm that produced the Steele reporting, the name of the firm that produced that was Fusion GPS. Is that correct?
Me no recall. Me fuzzy on that one.
Well, let me just help. It was. It's not a trick question. Right? It was Fusion GPS. Now, Fusion GPS produced the opposition research document widely known as the Steele dossier, and the owner of Fusion GPA was someone named Glenn Simpson. Are you familiar with?
Me no recall. Me fuzzy on that one.
All right, fine, you got me. That was actually doctored, but it was pretty close to the original. Okay, you want to hear Mueller's real answers? Here's Mueller's real answers.
When you talk about the firm that produced the Steele reporting, the name of the firm that produced that was Fusion GPS. Is that correct?
Well, I'm not familiar with that.
Let me just help. It was. It's not a trick question. Right? It was Fusion GPS. Now, Fusion GPS produced the opposition research document widely known as the Steele dossier, and the owner of Fusion GPA was someone named Glenn Simpson. Are you familiar with?
This is outside my purview.
Okay.
Lots of conservative pundits were blown away by how poor Mueller's performance was in these hearings. Nobody was expecting him to be fumbling through the report like he had no clue what was in it. So they arrived at conclusions that ranged from about Mueller was hands-off and his team of Democratic activist lawyers did all the investigating. And they ranged from that to like Mueller has dementia. All right, Chris Wallace, who is on Fox News but is definitely not a conservative pundit, said that the hearing was disastrous for Mueller's reputation. Listen to Wallace. He was on the Colbert Show, and Colbert was all upset. I actually originally saw this on the Ben Shapiro Show, but it was so funny I had to play it. Colbert was all upset that Wallace had this take on the hearing, so he was trying to push back against Wallace. So here's Colbert trying to act like there was a brand new bike in the Mueller box instead of a 3-pack of underwear.
This has been a disaster for the Democrats and a disaster for the reputation of Robert Mueller. Now, you said that at 10:07 this morning, an hour and a half into a 6-hour series of hearings. So is Fox News' motto, we report and decide before the thing's over?
There was a break in the hearing.
Yes.
We were asked for our reaction. And let me simply say, nothing in your monologue disproved that description.
In what way was it a disaster? I don't understand.
Yes, you do.
That was just a savage call out of Colbert right there by Chris Wallace. It was awesome.
Yes, you do.
I don't understand.
Yes, you do.
I don't know if Chris Wallace is going to be invited back on Colbert's show or not after that. But the consensus was that Mueller performed like a 3-pack of underwear. That he knows nothing about what is in the report. Mueller is incompetent. Mueller doesn't know what's in his own report, blah, blah, blah. Once this stuff hits the echo chamber and really rings true like it did, there's not much hope of hearing a different take. But mine is a little different. And I'm going to give a shout out to my chief political analyst on this one. It's very simple. I believe that Mueller purposely distanced himself from the eponymous investigation, the eponymous report, and most of all, from the origins of the investigation. I mean, think about it. What's more believable? Mueller is suddenly not who anyone thought he was and knows absolutely nothing about what he's been working on for the last 2 years of his life? Or Mueller purposely distanced himself from the work he did for 2 years? Here's how it really went down. Here's what really happened. Mueller took a shot at the President of the United States and he missed. It's as simple as that. He took a shot at the president and he missed. He missed big time.
Just a bit outside.
Going into this, Mueller was going to prove that the President of the United States conspired with Russia to steal the 2016 election. The media told me that every single day for 2 years. Time magazine ran a cover with a picture of the White House merging with the Kremlin. President Trump was going to be handcuffed and thrown in prison. Brennan and Clapper were on TV and Twitter telling me that Trump was going down on a daily basis. Brennan was accusing Trump of literal treason. Comey got fired and leaked memos for the purpose of getting a special counsel appointed. And by the way, if you believe anonymous source reporting, which I try, I don't get into anonymous source reporting. If somebody's not putting their name on it, I'm not that interested. But if we do believe that, then Real Clear Investigation says we can expect in the Horowitz report to find out that Comey had an inside man feeding information to him about Donald Trump. Like I said, that's based on anonymous source reporting, so who knows if it's true or not. But leaking the memos to get the special counsel appointed, that's true from Comey's own mouth. So the special counsel that was appointed ended up being Comey bro Robert Mueller. He was put there to take down the president. And he did everything he could. He charged people with ancillary crimes. He charged people with procedural crimes. He dragged the investigation out past the midterm elections. In the end, after all of that, he had next to nothing on President Trump. All you have to do is look at the mainstream media's only anti-Trump takeaway from the hearings. And that was Trump wasn't exonerated of attempted obstruction. MSNBC and CNN both ran chyrons that said, Mueller, Trump not exonerated. Morons, you don't have to be exonerated. That's not how the justice system works. Okay, Trump wasn't exonerated of obstruction. Guess what? He wasn't exonerated for the Lincoln assassination either. You don't need to be exonerated of anything in this country, no matter who you are. There is no unique situation where accusations are enough and you have to be exonerated of the accusation or else you are guilty of it. That doesn't exist. That does not exist anywhere in our justice system for anyone, for any reason, at any time.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
The best way to look at it is to see how the narrative fell apart. So here's the damage that's been inflicted on the narrative. 2 years ago, the narrative was Trump should be imprisoned because he's a Russian conspirator. Then we had an investigation, a report, congressional hearings. What did we learn from all that? Mueller discovered, quote, an absence of evidence, end quote, of an underlying crime involving Trump or his campaign conspiring with Russia. Absence of evidence, no evidence. So all that's left is obstruction. And by admission of the Mueller report, other motives have to be considered for Trump's so-called obstructive actions because there's an absence of evidence of an underlying crime. It is possible to obstruct justice without an underlying crime, but it's a much more difficult case to make. It means you are trying to prove that someone is engaged in a cover-up when there was nothing there to cover up. Now, the absence of an underlying crime is only one problem. The other problem is that the investigation was not obstructed. They asked Mueller in these hearings over and over, was your investigation hindered in any way? This was one of the few questions that turned out to be in Mueller's purview. And the answer, every single time it was asked by a GOP representative, the answer was always no. It was not hindered in any way. Mueller carried out his full investigation without any hindrance whatsoever. That means justice was not obstructed. That's a big hit to Mueller's case, given that Trump, unlike most people accused of obstructing justice, has full Article 2 powers vested in him. The full power of the executive branch is vested in Donald Trump, which means he could have fired Mueller. He could have done a million things to directly obstruct or hinder the investigation, but he didn't. If he had wanted the investigation to stop, he had the power to stop it. By Mueller's admission, justice was not obstructive. So what does that mean? It means Trump definitely, absolutely did not obstruct justice. What's at issue is actually attempted obstruction of justice. Attempted obstruction of justice. And there's no compelling evidence for that. Mueller could have ignored the OLC opinion and charged Trump if there had been compelling evidence. He didn't because it was a garbage case. During the hearings, Democrats made a big deal about how Trump never answered questions for Mueller on obstruction. And that's somehow supposed to be damning, as if Trump doing what he has, Trump taking legal avenues that are available to him somehow are obstruction. That's not obstruction. Mueller could have gotten a subpoena to force Trump to answer questions. He didn't even try. Do you know why? Because the report says they didn't try because the investigation was running long and there just wasn't time. I call BS on that. They obviously did not give a damn how long it was taking. If it had been important to go fast, it would not have taken over 2 years to deliver nothing. If it had been important to ask Trump questions about obstruction, don't you think they'd have taken the time to get that subpoena? This whole thing was designed to get Trump. You think that they didn't subpoena him to ask him questions because they just felt like it had gone on too long? Nobody in America believes that. I think there's a better chance that they didn't even have good enough evidence of obstruction to get that subpoena, much less to charge him. I don't even think that they could have won the subpoena to question him. because there's no underlying crime. Justice has not been obstructed. The biggest piece of evidence they had was that Trump was mad and wanted to shut the investigation down. Yeah, if you had full Article 2 powers and you were being investigated of a crime you knew damn well never happened, you would get mad and want to shut the investigation down. That's just common sense. They have no evidence. So the fall of the narrative goes like this. 2 years ago, treasonous Trump should be in jail because he conspired with Russia to steal the 2016 election, and Mueller is going to find loads of evidence of that. Now, the narrative is this. Trump should be impeached because he was not exonerated of attempted obstruction of justice in a case where there was no evidence of an underlying crime. Mueller took a shot at the president, and he missed. Big time. He played the Game of Thrones, and he lost.
When you play the Game of Thrones, you win, or you die.
Metaphorically speaking, of course. In a month or two, Horowitz's IG report will be released. Early reports are pretty bad for Democrats. I just told you one of the early reports from Real Clear Investigation, from their sources. I think it was Paul Sperry on that story. We know the dossier was salacious trash. Mueller couldn't find any evidence that any of the stuff in the dossier was true, so we know the dossier was trash. What was it? It was Russian disinformation fed to the FBI by Christopher Steele, Nellie Orr, Bruce Orr. That dossier was paid for by Clinton and the DNC. The FBI used that trash dossier, paid for by Democrats, to get a FISA warrant to spy on Carter Page, and that was how they managed to start this entire BS, 100% political investigation against the Trump campaign. If you are the guy they sent in to take down Trump and cover up the origins of the investigation, and then you failed, what would you say in front of Congress? You would say, I don't know shit about any of this. You'd be like, what's Fusion GPS?
Me no recall.
You'd be like, who is Christopher Steele?
Me no recall.
You'd play dumb like Fat Tony on The Simpsons. Fat Tony, was that your truck illegally carrying those cigarettes? What's a truck? You would pass the buck. You would distance yourself. When they read Horowitz's report and they say, gee, Mueller, how did your investigation miss all of that? All of these corrupt origins. What is Mueller going to say? He's going to say, hey, I don't know jack shit about the investigation. Check the transcripts. All those people under me, I wasn't watching them, and they just got loose. I mean, I was a bad manager, but I mean, that's not a crime. Believe me, if you are lucid enough to politic yourself into that special counsel position to protect your friends and take a shot at taking down the president, you don't have dementia. You are not incompetent. When you are in charge of the most important investigation in the world, an investigation that people will read about in American history books for the next 200 years, you probably pay pretty close attention to everything that's happening. You probably know every detail. You're probably going to micromanage that one. Mueller isn't feeble-minded. He is distancing himself from the corruption that is about to be exposed. Let me repeat that. Mueller is not feeble-minded. He is distancing himself from the corruption that is about to be exposed. If he had succeeded in taking down Trump, it never would have been exposed. He failed. Now it will be exposed. If you are a person high on the political food chain, here's what you already know. You already know that the gambit to take down Trump has failed. There is not going to be an impeachment of Trump for not being exonerated of attempted obstruction of justice in a case with no evidence of an underlying crime. That's not happening. Higher up Democrats know this. They're just putting on a show for all the know-nothing Trump haters out there who would melt down if they found out what smart people on both sides already know, which is that the gambit to take down Trump failed miserably. He's not being impeached. He's definitely not going to jail. He's not being charged with any crimes now. He's not being charged with any crimes when he leaves office. What they're doing to the Trump haters, in dating, we call this stringing them along. That's what they're doing. They're just stringing them along. They're like, yeah, baby, we're gonna call you about impeaching Trump. We're gonna call you tomorrow, probably. I mean, maybe in a couple days if we're too busy tomorrow. But yeah, we're totally gonna do this. People at the top know that it's over. Going into the Mueller hearings, the Harvard-Harris poll showed that 35% of Americans want Trump impeached and removed from office. 35%. Guess how it breaks down by party? 12% of Republicans think Trump should be impeached. No surprise. We all knew that a small piece of the Republican pie was made of the mugwumps. That's what I call the never-Trumpers, the mugwumps. Among independents, 31% think Trump should be impeached. That is a very small percentage. Among Democrats, 60% think that Trump should be impeached. Do you know what that means? That means 40% of Democrats don't even think Trump should be impeached. This wouldn't even be a partisan impeachment. It would be just to please not the Democrats, but the loudest people in the Democratic Party. The Mueller hearings probably drove that number down. It's probably not even 35% anymore. It's probably way lower than that after the Mueller hearings. Because you know those were a disaster, right?
Yes, you do.
Do you think Democrats, with an election coming up, are going to make a massive move that only 35% of people are in favor of? I mean, it's a move. It's not a move that nobody's going to know about. It's going to be a move that transcends politics and moves, just dominates pop culture. Everyone is going to know about it. Only 35% of people are in favor of it. You think they're going to make that move with the election coming up? No! Of course not. Don't be naive. If you are one of the 35% who is for impeaching Trump, guess what? They're leading you on. They're stringing you along. They only want one thing from you. This is all very simple. The Trump-Russia saga is over. The storytelling continues on, but the real thing is gone. Poof. It's vapor. The box is opened. It was underwear. It will never be anything but underwear, no matter what anybody says. Mueller took a shot at the president. He missed. Now he's distancing himself from the weapon, which was his investigation, and the investigation that preceded it and led to his investigation. That's the weapon. He's distancing himself from that. He's not incompetent. He's not crazy. He's not stupid. He's not a feeble-minded old man. He doesn't have dementia. He was not the recipient of a lobotomy. He's not a guy wandering around the mall parking lot trying to remember what his car looks like. None of that is real. He's just a guy distancing himself from something that's going to blow up in everyone's face. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the show. You can email me at patriots@eddiezipper.com. Don't forget to subscribe on iTunes, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you could leave a review on iTunes, that would be amazing for me. Thank you. That's it. I'm out of here.
Me no recall. Me fuzzy on that one.
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com. And please subscribe.